It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and today's episode will be all about the San Francisco 49ers as we start to prepare for the upcoming 2021 NFL season. We'll take a look at some training camp quick hits, reasons for optimism, as well as causes for concern, in addition to our offensive and defensive positional breakdown. So without further ado, let's start off by taking a look at some of the key storylines heading into the 49ers season as we go into our 4-minute offense. With Jimmy Garoppolo back in the fold and the drafting of Trey Lance in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft, do we have a quarterback battle on our hands during training camp in San Francisco? The answer is both yes and no, and it's a bit complicated. You're always under evaluation when you step onto a football field, and in this particular case, whether or not the intention is clearly defined or silently implied, the facts of the matter are that the clock is ticking for Jimmy Garoppolo. How soon will that clock strike 12 will be determined by how well he's playing and how fast Trey Lance is coming along. And if it's even by the end of training camp, then that clock will have struck midnight by opening weekend. San Francisco was decimated by injuries last season on both sides of the ball, and it just wasn't a few nicks and bruises. They were losing players for the season, many of them stars like Joey Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, and Dee Ford, just to name a few. In fact, they lost both Mostert and Jeff Wilson to injury last year, and the hope is that with everyone returning to full strength, this team, who is rather competitive from start to finish, despite those injuries, can get back to the playoffs this upcoming season. Last year was a great year individually for two players in offensive tackle Trent Williams and cornerback Jason Verrett. Both players avoided the injury bug and played some phenomenal football. Williams came back after missing an entire year due to a medical situation with the Washington football team to show no ill effects and was able to be dominant up front. Verrett, whose career has been hamstrung by injury after injury, played in 13 games last year, the most since his Pro Bowl season of 2015. Both are looking to stack another great season on top of the previous one this upcoming year. For Jalen Hurd and cornerback Tim Harris they find themselves in a bit of a prove-it season this year, as both have been snake-bitten so far in their young careers with injuries. With the way both Trent Williams and Jason Verrett were able to break out last year after missing some time, the staff is hopeful that both Harris and Hurd can experience the same level of health as the aforementioned two, as it would be a big-time boom for San Francisco on both sides of the ball. We talked a little bit about the quarterback situation earlier between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. No matter what you think about his play, when Garoppolo is in there, the team seems to find a way to win more games than they lose. However, there is a bit of a ceiling with him, and I believe the staff knows that, which is why they went out and scouted all those quarterbacks in the draft, traded up high to number 3 to take Trey Lance at that selection. Lance gives them a +1 complement in a run game, which is so deadly to game plan for, and it helps bolster an already potent rushing offense. Lance is also a neophyte in terms of experience, having just one full season of starting experience at the collegiate level, and will more than likely garner a ton of preseason reps in these games. Garoppolo will have at least 6 games, in my opinion, to keep the job for the full season or audition well enough to generate trade value for someone else. I'm also interested to see how Josh Rosen does during the preseason. You still want to see if there's something there that can be tapped into for his potential and future long-term capabilities with this squad or with someone else. The 49ers get the benefit of both healthy personnel and an influx of more talent to the backfield this season. Raheem Mostert broke out in 2019 only to suffer an injury-plagued 2020. Getting him and the speedy Jeff Wilson back, who scored 7 touchdowns last year before he got hurt, already makes him a strong backfield. And in free agency, they brought in Wayne Gallman, who had himself sort of a breakout year last season with the Giants filling in for an injured Saquon Barkley. But it seems like a lot of the attention will be on both draft picks Trey Sermon out of Ohio State and Elijah Mitchell out of Louisiana. Both are excellent prospects, with Sermon possessing top-tier footwork and vision, and Mitchell with explosive home run hitting speed and the capability to be a downfield threat in the passing game. And we know the Niners love backfield depth, but will they keep all 5 guys? That question is what will make training camp and the preseason very exciting. And as always, in the backfield, the stellar fullback Kyle Juszczyk, who is coming off his 5th straight Pro Bowl season and continues to be arguably the best in the NFL at his position. I think bully ball will be in effect this year on the perimeter for the 49ers, as both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are excellent run after the catch options that not only hurt you in the passing game, but also as runners with the football in a wide receiver run game. Samuel dealt with nagging injuries last season, which allowed the rookie Ayuk to step in and break out, leading the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. The team signed veteran wide receiver Mohamed Sanu in free agency to vie for that number 3 job, but if Jalen Hurd can prove to be healthy on a consistent basis, I have to feel like he will have the inside track there at the position. Now, Richie James does give you more juice on the flanks and will also help out on special teams, and I would keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agent Austin Watkins Jr. out of UAB, who has top-tier explosiveness and big play ability. San Francisco is home to arguably the best tight end in football with George Kittle, who, like many others, dealt with injuries that cut his season short. He still managed to finish 3rd on the team in receptions and yards. Expect him to get back to his 1,000-yard ways this upcoming year. Another battle to keep an eye on this summer will be between Ross Dwelley, Michael Pruitt, Charlie Warner, and undrafted rookie free agent Josh Peterson for that tight end 2 and tight end 3 job out there on the flanks. Don't sleep on Peterson, whose game is very similar to that of Ross Dwelley. We spoke earlier about how good Trent Williams was last season, which earned him a big-time deal with the 49ers to stay on the left side for the foreseeable future. Opposite of him is Mike McGlinchey, who has proven to be stellar in the run game while still being a bit of a work in progress in pass pro. And San Francisco has good depth at tackle, with Sean Coleman returning from opting out last year, and second-year player Colton McKivitz, and rookie Jalen Moore out of Western Michigan, who was a tremendous prospect at tackle, will begin to transition inside to play guard, and he'll get to learn from both Daniel Brunskill and Laken Tomlinson. Both players turned in very solid 2020 seasons, but the team could see both Moore and second-round pick Aaron Banks out of Notre Dame as the future of the position. Banks was my number 1 guard prospect in the draft class and will put a lot of pressure on Brunskill and Tomlinson, gunning for one of those starting spots. Veteran Alex Mack was signed this offseason to give them stability at center, with Jake Brendel, who also opted out last year, providing depth. As it has been all throughout the show, the common theme here for the 49ers is health. Nick Bosa is a difference maker at defensive end, and he missed all but 2 games after tearing his ACL. A healthy Bosa, along with a healthy Dee Ford, who had back issues that limited him to 1 game last year, instantly makes their pass rush better. They got really good play from Eric Armstead and then rookie Javon Kinlaw, and Armstead chipped in with 3.5 sacks, but faced all that extra attention last season and should benefit from having a healthy Bo and also Ford back in the mix, and expect Kinlaw to take a big jump forward this season. To protect themselves from a depth perspective, the 49ers invested into this position in free agency by signing Zach Kerr from the Panthers and Maurice Hurst from the Raiders. They also signed defensive end Arden Key from the Raiders, who will be looking to reinvigorate his career as well. Both he and Kentavious Street will look to provide that rotational depth on the end, along with Jordan Willis, who flashed last year but faces a 6-game suspension this season for PEDs. Fred Warner led the team in tackles last year with 125. He was the only star on this team that didn't deal with any injury, and he parlayed that big season into a fat new contract extension. He made his first Pro Bowl and got his first All-Pro nod as well. Both should be mainstay honors for him moving forward. And I like what I saw from Dre Greenlaw last year as he just continues to trek in the right direction, pairing up perfectly with Warner, finishing second on the team with tackles. And San Francisco added Samson Ebukam this offseason from the Rams, who was their pressure player, who was always seemingly making a big play on a QB, whether it was a sack or a hit. He was impactful. And new defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans hopes that that's the case for this defense. Azeez Al-Shahir is another solid defender at the second level for San Francisco, starting 5 games last year and found himself around the ball very often. It was awesome to see cornerback Jason Verrett have the year he had, considering all that he has been through. He gives them a legit number 1 corner. Now the question is finding consistency elsewhere on the corners. Kwan Williams was brought back and figures to man that slot role, and rookie Ambry Thomas out of Michigan has a legit shot to start on the outside, competing with the veteran Dante Johnson. Thomas was a COVID opt-out but performed well down at the Senior Bowl this past January. Emmanuel Mosley started last year and hopes that's the case again, but he'll be in a battle for sure with Johnson and Thomas, and if Tim Harris can stay healthy, one could see his role increase within the unit as well. And rookie Demodor Lenore out of Oregon brings good quicks and instincts to the position and will look to add depth at nickel. At safety, they took a hit earlier this summer, losing Tavarius Moore to an Achilles injury, and that weakens the depth for sure, as Moore is a really good football player. Jimmy Ward and Jaquez Tart will be the two starting safeties once again, with Tart looking to bounce back from an injury-shortened season. And I do like the free agent acquisition of Tony Jefferson, and I think that's an underrated move, and he could be a solid move defender on the back end. And rookie Talanoa Lafanga out of USC is going to make some noise during the preseason. He's always around the ball. He plays at 100 miles an hour and will be a core special team initially before working himself into the regular defense. Marcel Harris is the veteran that gives them solid depth as well. One of the major reasons for optimism for San Francisco is that this team was competitive last year despite all of those injuries that they had. They were in a lot of games, they won some games, and was a tough team to play on both sides of the ball. And speaking of the ball, they do have playmakers that can score the ball anytime they want to. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, all of those running backs, Kyle Juszczyk, even George Kittle, they have a lot of talent that can score the ball, and they have a top-tier defensive front seven. Guys that can affect the pocket, that are stout versus the run, that can run and chase against the outside run and cover down the seam in the perimeter. So there's a lot of reasons for optimism if you're San Francisco. One of the causes for concern would be if there's a setback in the secondary. There's a lot of moving parts back there this season, and if they can't take that next step forward this year and find that cohesiveness as a group, it could be an issue. And if there's any inconsistency at the quarterback position, doesn't matter if it's Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, or if they're going through that ugly transition that you normally see when a guy isn't playing as well, so you throw the rookie in there and he's kind of sputtering a little bit. So if there's any inconsistency, I think that also gives you a reason for concern. Taking a look at some of the training camp quick hits, and we'll look at my camp surprises on both sides of the ball. Austin Watkins Jr., the undrafted rookie free agent out of UAB. Keep an eye on him. He has top-tier explosiveness and could legitimately be their deep threat in this passing offense. And defensively, Zach Kerr is a very underrated signing for San Francisco. I thought he was a fantastic prospect coming out of Delaware. He played well in Indy. I thought he played well last year in Carolina. I think he'll do a good job up front defensively for San Francisco. And Aaron Banks, to me, wouldn't surprise me to see him starting by season's end. This guy is going to be a dominant pro, a future all-pro. That's my bold prediction for this prospect. Look for him to have that rookie impact. And Talanoa Hufanga out of USC, I think will find a role within his defense, especially since they're already suffering some injuries on the back end at safety. He'll start out as a special teamer, but will end up making plays on the regular defense. Looking at some X factors, I like that running back rotation. I'm interested to see how it plays out this season. They got a lot of speed, some explosiveness, good vision, good burst. Interested to see how they work that out this year, as it could be a catalyst to them going far this season. Nick Bosa, if he's out there for a full 17-game season, it makes them a much better, much more dangerous defense. Breakout players, I think Jalen Hurd, doubling down once again, will have a breakout season. I think he's going to win that third receiver spot. They're going to utilize him in a wide receiver run game because he was a former college tailback at Tennessee. So I think he's going to have the breakout year. And defensively, Javon Kinlaw will just help strengthen that defensive line. Got his feet wet last year. This year he's going to be the full-fledged starter, going to come in and dominate on both ends. I like him as a guy to have a breakout year. The road to the Super Bowl for the 49ers goes as follows. That run game has to get into the top 7. If they're doing that, they're controlling the tempo, controlling the pace, and Garoppolo or Lance should be able to operate off play action efficiently. The cornerback play has to excel. They have to exceed expectations, as does the quarterback play. They have to elevate the unit as a whole around them. If these three things happen, San Francisco can travel downstate to the Super Bowl. I have the 49ers finishing 4th in the NFC West. I just foresee a transition at some point at quarterback. I have some questions about the secondary play more in particular on the corners outside of Jason Verrett. So just a few more questions I have about this team than the other squads in the division, but this will be a tough opponent week in, week out, because they can run the football and they can also control the point of attack on defense. So keep an eye on them. If they can stabilize their QB play and also in the secondary, they can definitely move up the division race and find themselves in the playoffs. But right now, I do have them finishing 4th. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All 32. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. And wherever you get your podcasts, be sure to subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.
It's D-U-E-U till I see you by this point. You're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it. Let's do it. We gon' make this thing official. You heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit. Man, we about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it. Let's do it. We gon' make this thing official. You heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit. Yeah.